What's up? What's up? Welcome to No Way. Tell Me Everything. I'm your host, Jess. Today, we're going to be talking about spiritual awakenings. Specifically, I'm going to talk about some of the more common spiritual awakening things that you go through. And I'm going to talk about 3 really weird things that happened to me that I had no clue about, that I wish somebody maybe had told me about beforehand, because I felt a little bit lost. So all of that being said, while I do that, to keep my hands busy and the information flowing from above, we're going to make another bundle. Today, I'm going to make a psychic bundle, something that I can use to bring in certain energies into my space as I clear out stuff that's not supposed to be there. So let's get started. Today, I'm going to be using a couple different herbs, again, from my garden. Lucky enough to have that option. I am going to kind of mix and match a few things I have. I have some lemon balm. Normally, I use this for luck, love, prosperity, but it also has a very light energy. So I'm actually going to use it for kind of a cleansing vibe today. So lemon balm, cleanse my space. I like to tell my herbs what I'm asking them to do because everything in magic is about intention. It's very much about intention. And herbs are so versatile. You can use, like, for example, I'm using rosemary today. I'm going to use rosemary in this case for protection. I'm using you for protection and remembrance, but you can also use it for a lot of other things. You can use it for abundance. I love to use rosemary for remembering. So anything to do with like a finding yourself again spell, but I also use it for protection because, for example, if I'm doing something outside, I don't want to sprinkle salt all over my garden because then stuff's not going to grow there. It's not good for my little fairy garden out back. So you have to kind of tell your herbs what to do. So ramble back to the beginning. I'm going to be using lemongrass to uplift the energy, cleanse the space. I'm going to use yarrow, which is known for divination, for its divination abilities as well. We talked about yarrow previously. It's a healer, also divination. So I'm going to use that one to help me get those good vibes in when I'm connecting. I'm going to be using lavender again because I like the calmness that lavender brings to me, and I feel like it helps to kind of get me into that trance state. I'm going to be using mint. Mint is a maybe not always kind of associated with psychic ability herb. And it's because it's known to amplify intentions and also bring good things, good spirits. So if I'm going to attract good energy, I'm going to use some mint for that. So we're going to wrap up all this stuff into a nice little bundle, hang it to dry, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Then I have my divination bundle. And while I do that, let's chat about spiritual awakenings. So when you go through a spiritual awakening, it might sound like a really lovely word. It's like, oh, it's spiritual and I'm awakening. And maybe some people have that experience. That was certainly not my experience. I have gone through a number of spiritual awakenings. I don't think it's something that's one and done. You kind of can awaken a couple times throughout your life in my experience. I had a real big one a couple years back. I think that was like the big spiritual awakening. That was where all of my psychic abilities really started to coalesce and come together. And I had a number of things happen during that period. It's not like they happen all in one. I know it's called a spiritual awakening, but it doesn't just happen all in one go. It's kind of a process. So you do have this initial period of, someone once described it as waking up to a life that you built while you were asleep. And I think that's a fantastic way to describe it. Because you have this awakening experience of suddenly looking around at your life and being like, I don't know if this makes me happy. And I've talked about this on TikTok before. I'm a strong believer that a lot of people that have been described as going through a midlife crisis are probably going through a spiritual awakening. That's probably actually what's happening. And it does tend to happen. It feels like one of the big ones around 35 to 38-ish. You start to, again, feel this spiritual awakening. You kind of wake up and want to change a bunch of stuff, or you look around at everything you have and go, none of this stuff makes me happy. And you can handle it in a healthy way, which is with curiosity and caution and discernment. Maybe you've, obviously heard of the stereotypical way of like divorcing your partner. That's maybe not a super healthy way to handle it, especially if you're not taking the time to understand and integrate what's going on inside of you, because you will feel completely out of body in a way. It's an ego death. It's everything you thought you knew about yourself, everything you knew about your life and what you wanted in your life is suddenly you're questioning all of those things. So that's in a nutshell what a true big spiritual awakening is. As I mentioned, you might have smaller little like starters or appetizer spiritual awakenings where you start to kind of focus on like one area. But if you have this big spiritual awakening, which I feel actually is happening a lot in the collective right now, it feels like there's a lot of people going through this. Could be my age because all my friends are kind of in this age range. And I'm about to turn 40 next year. That could be part of it. But I do feel like there are a lot of people outside of my group that are also going through something similar. So let's talk about some of the things that you might experience. So I already touched a little bit on everything feels like you don't want it anymore, maybe, or what's the point? You might feel like a completely different person. And I mentioned the word ego death. This is a term that's thrown around a lot. So you might have heard it before and not really know what exactly it meant. But it literally just means the life you built, everything you thought you wanted, you realize, that's not me. I don't like that. I don't want that. What do I actually want? And it's a really scary time for a lot of us because change is scary and it feels very out of your control. You know, I know in my case, I spent 15 years working towards a career goal that I really thought I wanted. And then one day, it wasn't one day, it was over a little bit of time, but over a little bit of time, I started to realize, shit, I don't think I actually don't want that. I know I'm really good at this. I don't really like this. I don't like it. I don't like what it entails. I don't like the stuff that I'm working towards. I don't agree with the values. That's an ego death. And when you have an ego death, it's not just you who feels it. Your friends, your family, your circle, they're going to feel your ego death. And this is where spiritual awakenings actually can be very lonely because they are universal and singular at the same time. Everyone who goes through a spiritual awakening, when you talk to them and you're going through a spiritual awakening, they'll just be nodding along like, I was there. Yep, I get it. And they get the overall process and they get the overall steps of what's happening. But what happens to you as a person is completely individual. So no one really will ever be able to relate 100% to exactly what you went through in your spiritual awakening. And it can be very isolating, lonely, alienating, and it can also be those things for the people around you. Because when you start to change, when you start to align to who you actually feel that you are, and you make changes in your life, that's not going to sit well with everybody in your life. So you may end up losing people in your life that you love dearly or that you think are your ride or dies. This could be family. It could be friends. I would say it's very hard because, again, we don't like change. It feels comfortable to have these people in our lives. But I would also caution that if somebody cannot be with you through different stages of your life because they don't agree with it, they don't align with it, they don't like who you are, then they probably aren't meant to be in your life. They're probably not the true friend that you actually thought that they were going to be for you. So there's also a discernment on your part of, yes, this is hard. Yes, that sucks. I don't like it. But actually, maybe this is good for me. Maybe this person is not aligned with me. This person is not creating an atmosphere for me that makes me thrive. This person cannot be happy for me. And that is something else that you will see a lot when you go through spiritual awakening because it is a sort of evolution. And we live in a world that's very capitalistic, very patriarchal, very focused on the material. When you go through a spiritual awakening, I have not seen anyone who did not have some sort of revelation around all of the material, all of the chasing of clout, all of the external value systems that we've set up, that they don't matter, that none of that matters. And when you embody that energy, people who are on a lower vibrational level of being very, very stuck in what do I have? What does it say about me? Do I have the newest things? Do I have the biggest house? These are the things that tell other people how great I am. When you start to look at that and realize that you don't want those things for those reasons, I'm not saying you don't want those things, but you don't want them for the same reasons. That can be very triggering for people who are very stuck in that lower energy, materialistic side of living. So they might try to be happy for you. But another thing I'll talk about shortly is that you start to sense energy. You'll be able to start seeing and sensing when people are not genuinely supporting you and are not genuinely happy for you. So those people will probably fall out of your life, whether it's your choice or their choice. And I would say that's a good thing and you should let them go. You let yourself grieve the friendship, grieve the family relationship, whatever relationship it is. Allow yourself to grieve it. Spiritual awakenings are hard. Like I said, you're going to grieve those lost relationships, but ultimately they're not for you. They are keeping you held back. And if you believe in energetics, which I do, so let me just quickly talk about that. When you let go of people that are keeping you back, that are keeping you from increasing your vibration, increasing your energy to a higher level, you will start to attract the people that are on your level, that have the same goals, that are looking at the same things. That is how the universe works, in my opinion. When it comes to energetics, you will find those people, whether you go out and find them or they start to come into your life. I've seen it happen with myself and others. It's, again, the universe is magical. It just starts to happen. So Another sign. And I want to be very careful in describing this one because there is a distinction and a discernment. And everything I say, let's just blanket this. In everything I ever say, on any video you see, on any sound clip, on anything, please, for the love of God, for myself or others, practice discernment. Practice critical thinking. You should not listen to anything I say and just take it as absolute truth. This is my experience. You have to form your own experiences. Sorry, I just need to get that out because I do not want people to take the next thing I say and run with it and not get help if they need it. You may start hearing your name being called. That was one of the very first things that I experienced during my spiritual awakening. I would just be minding my own damn business, walking around my house, and I would just hear, Jessica! And I'm like, and at first, I, obviously thought it was my husband or somebody. So I'd be like, what? And they're like, nothing. What are you talking about? And I was like, did you say my name? No? Okay. Weird. And then it kept happening. And I distinctly remember there was one time I was walking into my bedroom. There was nobody home. I'm just walking around cleaning and I hear, Jessica! And I was like, okay, shit. Because that was definitely nobody. And I was blessed at the time to have had a recent new friend come into my life. Again, I don't believe in coincidences, who grew up in a very spiritual atmosphere. She's Maori, indigenous, whole family embraced this way of living. She grew up in a spiritual household. So I reached out to her. I said, hey, I keep hearing my name being shouted when I'm walking around the house, when I'm waking up, when I'm falling asleep, random times when I'm just in my head, not when I'm out doing a lot of different stuff. I don't think I was connected at that point, but these kind of stillness times. And I was like, I'm a little worried that I have schizophrenia. And she very calmly explained to me that this was a very normal symptom that you go through when you're having a spiritual awakening. As I kind of got to feel into it more and realize it, they were literally helping me wake up by waking me up, by yelling at me. I mean, like I said, I would be waking up and I would hear them talking to me. I had a really funny, my guides are hilarious. I had a really funny exchange where one of them told me I needed a piece of gum. I mean, you'll start to maybe hear these kind of snippets. And when I first started hearing them, they were not in my voice. They were in a different voice, which was really what was freaking me out. My clairaudience now is in my voice. It's in a different part of my head. I can hear it almost back here, but it's my voice. But when I started hearing it, it was not my voice. It was a male voice. And it really freaked me out. I did all the mental health testing. I'm fine. So I want to be really clear that you might start hearing people saying your name. If you hear voices telling you things about harming other people, harming yourself, people watching you, these kind of paranoid schizophrenic kind of thoughts, you should definitely talk to somebody because saying your name is quite different from the schizophrenic or other mental health voices that you could be hearing. So little legal mental health caveat there, but that is one of the common signs. Another one you probably heard about if you're learning about spiritual awakenings is ears ringing. Again, medical disclaimer, can be a sign of tinnitus or something else. Pay attention to when you're hearing it. Pay attention to how loud it is. Spiritual ringing in your ears tends to be one or the other. I have tried desperately to figure out for myself why sometimes it's left, sometimes it's right. I know there's lots of theories about this. None of them really fit in with me, so I'm not going to try to teach you on what they could be. You can look that up if you're interested in that. But what I did find is that the spiritual ear ringing tend to happen when I was having pivotal conversations, pivotal thoughts, warnings, and I think that they were signs in my case, probably from my guides. I don't know what the difference is between the ears, but there's something. I do also believe there's something around raising your vibration because sometimes when I'm doing certain energy work to raise my vibration, my ears will ring. So I don't know if that's because I'm getting on that frequency, but there is something around that. Ear ringing, super common one. That's super common. I've heard that from like almost every single person who goes through one. Here's a weird one that I didn't know about that I wish I had known about. And I will also say, I no longer have this. But when I went through my spiritual awakening, I had it, which is I had very strange food aversions. So literally from like one day to the next, I went from being super paleo to not wanting to eat any meat. Not really wanting to eat any meat, any bread, any heavy foods, any grains. I really just wanted to eat fruit and vegetables. That was pretty much the vibe. I was just, every time I tried to think about what I wanted to eat, it was always, I would love some fruits, fresh, cold fruit and vegetables. So I did go through a period where I didn't eat any meat. I allowed myself to sit with that and experience that. And I think it was about 4 or 5 months where I didn't eat meat, didn't have dairy. And I already have a lot of food issues anyway, but meat was always the one thing that I could my body could handle, and then I didn't want to eat it. So that was a fun period because everything I wanted to eat eventually in that period where I had to eat it to stay vegetarian, my body freaking hated. So it was really interesting because I knew my body didn't like, legumes, for example, like beans and lentils and stuff like that. Like it just did not like that stuff. But I had to eat that if I was going to be vegetarian. Now, after about that 5-6 months, it started to subside. So I started to not feel like I need to eat only this kind of food. I started to again start to crave some meat here and there and some, heavier foods and stuff like that. And so I allowed myself to go back to that. I don't really live with strict rules on anything. I'm pretty open to whatever I get. But that was an interesting one for me because I hadn't heard about that. No one talked to me about that. I haven't drank for close to 3 years or smoked. I used to be, if you knew me before that, I used to be very heavily into both those things. And that is another one that I've heard from people. I had that right around the time I was awakening. I didn't really connect it at the time, to be honest. But I think that I was finally ready to let those crutches in my case go. And so from one day to the next, I just stopped drinking, stopped smoking. In my case, it was not hard for me because something inside of me just clicked. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And that was a little bit like the food aversions. And I've heard from other people going through spiritual awakenings that they also, especially alcohol, lost any interest in drinking. And I think in my experience, my case, alcohol lowers your vibration. And if you're going to be doing psychic work, especially if you're really tuning into your psychic senses, if that's what's coming through for you in your spiritual awakening, I think that that's why it's natural to not want to drink anymore. Because it's not that you can't have alcohol and be a psychic. I know plenty who have a drink here and there, but it does lower your vibration. And I have heard from other people that have experienced that when they drink and do psychic work, they have unwanted energies coming in. I haven't personally experienced that, but they have. So maybe there is something around that, around not wanting to drink so that you can protect yourself better and you're not attracting lower vibrational energies into your field, into whatever you're doing. And also just so you can keep your vibration high so that you can really connect at the level that you're trying to connect to. In case you're not really psychic, there's probably almost everybody listening to this who's not a psychic. But if you don't know so much about the different vibrational energies of the spirits and things we talk to, there are almost like levels of different spiritual energies that come in. So I don't like labeling things. I just think of everything as like energetic levels. But for all intents and purposes, so it's easier to understand, something like an archangel, let's use angels because I think that's probably easy to understand for most people. An archangel would be like a very high vibrational energy. So in order to really communicate clearly with them, you would have to super raise your vibration because we as humans, we vibrate at a much lower level. And that's why most of us don't tap in and don't have psychic connections with anything because we're just not able to properly hear it. You're definitely connected to your higher self and your team. You might not be hearing it, but to actually try to connect with a loved one who's passed, your spirit guides in a very clear manner, or work with angels, you really have to raise your vibration very, very high. So an archangel sits kind of at the top of that vibrational field when we're talking about angels, right? And then angels are maybe a little bit lower. And then I'm also not an angel expert here, but like there's something below an angel. And then if you want to believe in I don't believe in the fallen angel thing, but again, intents and purposes, the fallen angels would be much lower. So when you start trying to connect, they might be the first ones that you're able to connect to because they have a lower vibrational. And then as you start to learn to harness your energy, keep your vibration up, bring it up through meditation, trance, energy work, whatever way you do it, you'll be able to tap into those higher levels. So little lesson there on the different higher vibrational levels and different things. And again, don't quote me on the angels thing because I don't really label energy. I just feel it and I can categorize it based on the feeling. Not an angel expert. I will have one on my show though. So I'm sure maybe we can ask him that question. The next one is dreams. I have always been a very vivid dreamer, but when I went through spiritual awakening, the dreams went on crack. Like I was waking up with not only the most vivid dreams, but they were somehow so crazy and so rational at the same time, and they felt different. There was an energy to them. The other key here is that I'm sure if you do even somewhat remember your dreams, I'm sure we've all been there, that you wake up and you had this crazy ass dream, but you just can't remember the details. Maybe you remember like a snippet. but you remember everything. My dreams during the spiritual awakening, I would wake up remembering everything and every detail. Or if I didn't, I could sit with it for a minute and it would come back. I had never had that before. I could be like, there was a dude in an ice cream truck and he was giving out severed heads, but like the severed heads, the blood was cherry sauce. And then I went out and was queen. And I don't remember how I got there. Like that was how it was before. And then in the spiritual awakening, it was like, so I lived in a house with a man and a woman, and we were fairies, and we had a crystal shop, and we sold all these different crystals, and this little like gremlin bald dude came in the window, and he was trying to steal the crystals. And these two people I lived with, who I felt like maybe were like my mom and dad or like my caretakers, somehow we were connected as like a family. They rushed me out the door. But then something happened where I like fell into the water, and the guy with the bald head tried to drown my head in the water. And then this guy, Mr. Osman, came and he lifted me out of the water and he hit the guy with the rock and he killed him and he saved me. And then I looked at him and I said, I love you, Mr. Osman. And then he said, I love you, Agnes. And then I woke up. And then my husband, who was trying to still sleep next to me, was like, that's great, honey. Thank you. So there's a very big difference. Like they're vivid, they're strange, they're crazy. They somehow make sense. And you remember every single detail of the dream. If you're a person who doesn't remember any of your dreams ever, I can't guarantee that this will happen to you. All right. So the next thing, synchronicities and signs. Deja vu exists because somebody started noticing, probably during a spiritual awakening, that they had experienced this thing before. Deja vu is a kind of synchronicity. So synchronicities are things like you're thinking about a sunflower just all day. Like you wake up with a sunflower in your head. You're thinking about it. Somebody mentions a sunflower. You go out, the song Sunflower comes on, and you start to notice like, shit, I've been hearing sunflowers coming up like so much. And then somebody from a company named Sunflower messages you and said, hey, we saw your profile on LinkedIn and we really thought that you'd be a good fit for this. And that's a synchronicity, which is also a sign in this case that this is something for you. We all have synchronicities and signs going on all day, every day. Any of my friends will tell you that is my biggest red flag. I see so many signs and synchronicities in everything. And again, this is where I practice discernment, because from a very 3D practical standpoint, when you start to notice something, your brain is going to notice it more. Just straight up science. That's exactly what's going to happen. If you say 33, I saw 33 today, you're going to keep seeing 33. The thing is, you're going to see other numbers as well. You're just not going to notice them. Your brain's not going to notice them because you kind of opened up your field of view to this thing, and your brain is going to start to notice that thing over and over again because each time you see it, you get a little excited. And so it's like a reward system. So you have to practice some discernment in things. There's a difference between, I kept hearing the name John. The name John kept coming up. Like I saw it, there was an article about it written by a guy named John. And then my friend talked about a guy she met named John. And then I was on TikTok and there was a guy named John. And then I went on my dating app and there was a guy named John. And I think it's because we are meant to be together. So I swiped right on him and we're going on a date. And I'm so excited because this is the universe telling me that John is the one. Going to get married, have babies, have a French bulldog. I don't know what your dream is. And then turns out John's an asshole. Let's be PG with the language, Jessica. John is not a fun guy. But you keep clinging on to John because you go, well, I saw all the signs. So I'm supposed to. You have to use discernment because one, John is a very popular name in some parts of the world. So that could just be because people are unimaginative with their baby names. Now, if his name was Bartholomew, I'll give you that. There's definitely something there. The other thing is that we don't always have people and things put in our path because they're meant for us as a affirmation kind of situation. Sometimes they're meant for us as a lesson. So it could be very well that you were supposed to match with John, but you have to also exercise your own intuition, your own discernment, your own free will, because maybe the lesson was John's like a lot of your exes and the universe wants to show you that you keep choosing the same guy that treats you like crap. So spool it back to the point I was making. I can't believe I'm remembering everything I talked about. This is unreal. This has got to be spirit helping me. So thanks for that. Signs and synchronicities will start to come everywhere and you'll start noticing them, repeating numbers constantly. Animals, a lot of the times, like it'll be very symbolic to you because it's going to be whatever resonates with you. I'm very much a numbers person and an animals person. My husband will laugh so hard if he heard that. I am not a numbers person as in math. Screw math. That is not me. What I mean is that I believe the mathematical side of the universe, the numbers, and that it's a very simple way for our guides and our higher self to communicate with us. So I very much see a lot of numbers, but I have to be discerning about it. And one thing you can do is use the signs to confirm the synchronicities. So if I keep seeing 777 everywhere, and I'm like, man, I see 777 everywhere, that's got to be something. I can ask my guides, if this is actually a sign for me, can you show me an ostrich wearing a bath hat? And then if I see that, I know. And you probably go, that's a ridiculous sign to ask your guides. Why not ask for a feather? Because I see feathers everywhere. That's too easy. When I'm trying to confirm a synchronicity, I'm going to ask for some crazy off the wall shit. And let me tell you, 9 out of 10 times when they're confirming it, I get it. I get the sign. I have to open up my mind to how I get it, because if I say, show me an ostrich with a bath hat, I might not actually see it. Like, they're not going to have an ostrich running down my street in a bath hat. Although that, by the way, dudes, like, if you are listening, that'd be freaking hilarious. I would love that. But it could be something else. It could be written somewhere. It could be somebody else in my life randomly says something about that. You have to be a little bit open to how you receive the sign. But if it is an affirmation for you, you'll get it. So I would recommend as well, when you're asking for signs to confirm things, don't go with the standard stuff, because sometimes I feel like that's cheating. Sometimes I feel like if you go, if this is for me, show me a feather, and then you see a feather and you're like, they showed it to me, and it's like, yeah, but the feathers are everywhere. You asked for an easy sign because you want it to be a yes. Let's go back to John. You're like, if John is the one for me, show me a red car. Girl, what? You are asking to see a red car because you want John to be the one, right? If you want your signs to be true affirmations of the things that you're following, of the career path, of the synchronicities, of the whatever, you got to ask for a good sign. Don't pull that crap. Don't do it. The universe also knows what you're doing, so then you will not see a red car for the rest of your life. All right, questioning beliefs. This is a big one, because this is kind of a pillar of a spiritual awakening. Oh my God, this bitch smells so good. Can't wait to burn it. I love how I talked about I haven't lost my mindset or my train of thought, and I just completely gone. It's way off. Frickin' Siberian Railroad. Questioning beliefs. This is a keystone pillar of spiritual awakening. I got it now. When you go through a spiritual awakening, the whole point of it is to wake you up, is to question everything and see, is this in alignment with me? Is it not in alignment with me? Is this performative? Is this conditioning? And strip all that away. So a lot of things that might happen is you start to really question your beliefs. I was raised in a Christian Baptist church from, I think we started going around 8. My mom had a spiritual awakening, I guess, and she started going to church. I actually think she met a guy who went to that church, and that's why we started going. But whatever reason, we found a community there. I actually very much enjoyed that church. We went to church every single Sunday. That's how I grew up. I was not questioning anything. Everything I was told, that was how it was. I was like, great, sounds fantastic. I love that I'm being told this. I don't have to think about it. I just have to follow it. As I got older and I go through these, like, you know, just general, as you age, you start to question stuff, right? As you get out of your parents' household. But also I started to experience the world and meet different types of people. And I started to really question some of the things that I'd been told, because I thought these people were amazing. I thought these values were great. I really liked these certain things, and I was being told that they were a sin or they were not good. And I started to question that a little bit, but I was still too scared to really step outside of it. So I just kept following along, but I would say, I don't follow this principle, or I don't believe that. So I started to question that very much. And it took a lot of courage for me, eventually going through this big spiritual awakening, to officially claim for myself, because I was also denying it. This ego death is scary. Suddenly something that you knew is true for years is no longer true. That's scary, and it's allowed to be scary. I suddenly was saying to myself, you know what? I actually don't feel Christian. Do I believe in Jesus's teachings and some of the things that he said? And sure, absolutely. I think Jesus was a G, honestly. I mean, I'm not an aficionado of the full Bible, but the parts that I do know about Jesus, I don't think he'd be jiving with where Christianity is today. He seemed cool. I mean, his best friend was a former sex worker, which is like, cool. Love that for them. Anywho, when I went through my spiritual awakening, I questioned everything even more. And that was where I officially said, you know what? I don't feel this way anymore. I'm not going to identify as Christian. I'm going to identify as agnostic, in between. Figuring it out. That's what I'm going to do. You will start to question these kind of things. They can be little beliefs. They can be big beliefs. They can be, I mean, I also started questioning everything I thought I knew about government and their role in our lives and what they're meant to do for us and things about myself. Like it can be so many different things. And that's, again, another reason why spiritual awakening can be really lonely and really scary, because you're navigating completely new waters of things. So when you start questioning your beliefs, just know that you're meant to do that. That is exactly what you're meant to be doing. And maybe you'll find out as you question your beliefs that you still actually hold those beliefs. Maybe you question them and then you go, you know what? No, I do feel that way. I do believe that. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to change and all your beliefs have to change. They don't have to change if they're still aligned with you. But you are meant to question things, and you're meant to continue questioning things. I will scream from the rooftops forever. Question authority. Question the things you're told. We've been told that it means that you're rebellious or you're problematic, or if you're a woman, that you're a bitch. Lean into that. Who the fuck cares? I love owning being a bitch. Sure, I'm a bitch. I hold people accountable, and I don't let people walk all over me. If that's a bitch, I'm the capital bitch. Come on, bitch with a capital B. That's me. Question things in yourself, in others. It's part of the evolution. It's part of making sure you grow. It's part of making sure you don't stay stuck. And your spiritual awakening is going to jumpstart that. So it's another one. One thing that you also may experience that hasn't been talked about so much is you probably are going to want to start doing nature shit. And this one sure was a shock for me. I went to a school where we went camping like twice a year, and I hated every freaking second of it for 18 years. It was the bane of my existence. And I vowed when I got out of that school that I would never go camping again. And I didn't like to go in nature, and I wasn't going to go swimming because I was going to mess up my hair. You name it. I was just not doing anything in nature. Lo and behold, go through my spiritual awakening, and suddenly I'm like, I want to go into the forest. I want to swim in a lake. I want to go camping. I want to sit by a fire. I'm going to, get some hiking boots, because we regulate, we ground, we commune, we connect with nature when we're in nature. We're all energy. Everything is energy, in my opinion. And this nature energy is extremely calming, connecting, very community-based. And you'll start to also probably look at nature in a different way. Before my spiritual awakening, a tree was a tree, and it gave us oxygen. And thanks. Thanks for that. It gave us fruit. Cool. Thanks for that. Now it's like my garden is my friend. I hate pruning back tree branches and bushes because I feel like I'm cutting off the damn arms. Now, for my fellow gardeners, my other green witches, I know I have to do it. I know it's good for them and it helps them. But I'm just trying to convey that I think of all beings, all energy as living. I talk to my plants. I sing to them. I go out and sit in my garden and talk to them, honestly. I ask permission before I take things. I ask permission from the earth before I take stones from a beach. I ask plants if I can take their flowers. And when I take anything from a plant, whether it's a fruit, a flower, stem, anything, I give thanks to them for that. I have these lovely flowers behind me. If you're watching YouTube, they're from my butterfly bush and some wildflowers that I planted for the bees. And I gave thanks when I took those. Because I think it is this symbiosis that you start to reconnect to when you go through a spiritual awakening. Now, I don't think everybody gets to that necessary level. I'm a green witch. I work a lot with the earth energies and the plants. So I do feel very connected to it in a different way. I'm not saying that you're suddenly going to be hugging trees like I do and talking to them and putting your hands on them and giving them energy and whatnot. So if that freaks you out, I'm not saying that's going to happen to you. But you probably will find that you at least feel better when you go into nature. My particular favorite place is a forest. I'm a forest girly. I love a lake. I love swimming in a lake. You might find that it's just the beach. Maybe you just like the beach. That's your thing, Or you like mountains. I mean, I also like mountains. They're freaking gorgeous. Who doesn't like mountains? But maybe you like mountains. It could be different for everybody. But there's something naturey that's probably going to call to you. Here's the biggie that can happen when you go through a spiritual awakening. You might find that your psychic abilities open up. I'm just going to put this down for a second while we talk about this one, because this one is a big one if anyone's going through it, or even if you want to open up your psychic abilities. Because to start off with, I am a firm believer that every single person has the ability to do psychic work. It is not a gift. It is an ability. I do think it is a gift that we as humans are able to do it, but everyone has the ability. What you're able to do psychically may differ from other people. For example, I am clairsentient. So most of the information that I get, most of the psychic readings that I do, the mediumship readings that I do, are based on claircognizance and clairsentience. Those are my two, I would say, strongest when I do my readings, which is I feel in my body different changes in energy, sensations, and it comes with a knowing of what those sensations are telling me. My mentor is clairvoyant primarily. So she sees everything in here in her third eye. I don't think she sees it with her actual eyes. Some people do see stuff, but I think she sees it in her head. Another thing is that I can connect to people's loved ones who have passed, but that's not really where I put my energy into. I think because I work more with helping and healing, the only time people's loved ones really come through for me are when it's something like closure or they need to heal something from that relationship. Otherwise, it's me connecting to their guides via my guides or their own energy to read what's going on in their energy. Those are the areas I focus on. Everybody has the ability. At the very least, you have the ability to connect to your higher self, to your own intuition. Everybody has that. But these things might start to open up more. So it can be a little bit scary if you're not aware about that, because if suddenly you see something and then it happens, or you hear something in your head and you say it to somebody and they go, "That's so weird, I was just thinking that." Or a big one for me was you go to a concert, something that you love doing. You love going to concerts and seeing bands play, and suddenly you feel completely overwhelmed by what's going on in your body. You could feel like you're sinking into the ground. You can feel really heavy. Your energy can start buzzing. And it's because you've opened up a sense that's now starting to feel the energies around you. So just be aware that when you go through spiritual awakening, this might be something that happens for you. And if you don't want to connect psychically or energetically to things around you, there are very simple protection of your energy practices and closing practices that you can use. I don't walk around through life just doing psychic work. That would be A, unethical for the people around me because I haven't gotten their permission from that, and B, just completely draining and overwhelming. So you have to learn very simple practices to protect your energy and close off your energy if you're not interested in connecting with anybody. And they're very simple to learn. So if you're not interested in doing that, that's a very good option. If you are interested in opening your psychic abilities, I will talk more about it here. There's many other great podcasts. Like I think I mentioned Psychic Teachers in the last solo episode. I loved that one. When I was just waking up, the older episodes. Some of the episodes are lovely, but the audio is not great. So I think it was like 2021 maybe where they upped the audio. But check for yourself. Fantastic show. Spirit School with Danielle Sarank, another fantastic when you're starting out. And she offers sometimes some free training sessions here and there. Yaranala, fantastic when you're beginning out on your journey to learn some like basic stuff. There's so many good resources that you can look into if you're interested in starting. And of course, if you really want to develop it, I would recommend getting some sort of mentor, guide, or something to help you learn the ropes on that. But that might happen for you, especially if you're just naturally inclined to it or you had it when you were younger. There are simple practices you can do to work on it. Meditation was fantastic for me. That does not work for everybody. If meditation is not great for you, you could try walking meditation. Same reason that I work on something while I'm solo talking is because not only does the intuition kind of come more easily when I'm not focused on filtering information, I'm just focusing on doing something else while I'm talking. I have to somehow have something going on with my hands or my energy physically. So if you still want to do a meditation, but that's not working, you could try automatic writing. You could try walking meditation. Those are two really great ways. Automatic writing, you just sit down and start writing whatever comes through. Like don't filter it. Don't try to perform it. No one else is going to read it. Just go in and write it. Walking meditation is you listen to meditation, but you just go on a very chill walk. Sometimes I also like to do somatic dancing where you just put on some music without like lyrics, so your mind's not going to latch onto those, and just feel into yourself and let yourself move however you want. I get so many insights when I do that. If you're pretty intense, you could do like one of those sauna gooses. I like to do it. I get a lot of information in there as well, but they're hot as hell. So like if you're not into the sauna ice bath situation, great for you physically in most cases. I will say you should definitely try it. I love it. But that's another good way that you can kind of chill out and connect your emotions. When you go through a spiritual awakening, it's like the tether on your emotions has been released. Everything will feel bigger. And a lot of times it's because you're getting triggered to heal things so that you can align to a more authentic version of yourself and live a more authentic life. So suddenly you might get completely pissed off at something that you don't really care about that much. Or something makes you so joyous and happy that you start crying and you're like, I have seen a million rainbows in my life and never once have I cried from a rainbow. But suddenly you're bawling about how beautiful it is and how magical and how can we possibly be destroying our earth when she's so beautiful, and your people are next to you like, dude, what the fuck? And you're just going hard. It's because your emotions go hard when you go through a spiritual awakening. So it's super normal. So those are kind of the main signs that happen. There are so many more because, like I said, it's a collective experience. It's a collective experience in that we all do it. We all go through a spiritual awakening, but it'll be so individual to you of how you go through it and what that looks like for you. So because it can be so lonely, you're always welcome to write to me. I love talking about this kind of stuff. Clearly, I've been yapping on for like 40 minutes about it. But find a community, find other people going through the same thing as you. Because like I said, they won't be able to understand exactly what you're going through, but you will have some sort of empathization and understanding there that you're not going to get from the people around you who have no clue what you're talking about. And best case scenario, the people around you might not know what you're talking about, but they love you enough to listen in and support you. Worst case scenario, you're just going to find a lot of dissension and people who are like, you're crazy, you're not doing that. And the last thing you want to do is be gaslit or gaslight yourself into these things not happening. You can try to go back into the box after you go through a spiritual awakening. I haven't seen it be successful because I feel like once you're awake, you're awake. But you can rein yourself in from how deeply you go down that rabbit hole, how deeply you follow on the journey. But I just can't imagine that your soul that has now woken up at the time it's supposed to wake up for you to help you on your journey is going to ever stop nagging you to not go down that road. We always try to delay stuff in our lives, but I feel like this is kind of what's going to happen. So, quick recap. Here are some of the main things. You might hear your voice being called. Your ears might start ringing. Again, with both of those, use discretion. Is it a mental health thing? Is it a physical health thing? Probably could be. I'm not a doctor, but I'm not going to rule it out. Ears ringing can also be a physical health thing. So make sure that, you cross off the medical side of it, the mental health side of it. You're not really missing that. Number 3, your emotions will go hard. Number 4, food aversions. That weird situation where you suddenly don't want to eat stuff that you used to freaking love. That was like your favorite food in the whole world. Not wanting to drink or smoke, just suddenly waking up and being like, I don't want that anymore. Very vivid dreams that you also remember and probably feel really different. So you might start lucid dreaming, for example. Are you totally aware that you're in a dream? You're following along, but you're in the dream. That could possibly happen. Signs and synchronicities. Again, you can check your synchronicities by asking for a sign. Just make sure that the sign is not something that you see very regularly every day. Because either A, you're trying to force an outcome because you want it to be that way, or B, you're not going to get it because your guides are like, this is ridiculous. So try to pick something interesting. Doesn't have to be super crazy like my example, but something interesting. You go through an ego death where everything as you knew it about yourself, your life, everything starts to crumble and fall away. This is where you can lose friends and family, partners. Don't lose yourself. That's the most important thing. Let the things that don't align with you fall away from you, but do not lose you. And that will be the anchor. You need to be your anchor of who you are. Questioning your beliefs, everything you thought was true about yourself, your relationship, religion, your government, your company. It can be so many things, but you just start to question everything. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to completely change those beliefs, but you have to question them and make sure that they are in fact aligned with you. Does anything need to change? Yeah. And then opening up your psychic intuition and your abilities can be a big sign that happens. All right, let's pull an oracle card for today. Okay. Today, I have another lovely Colette Baron Reed deck, Goddess Oracle deck. Love this deck so much. All right. Let's see. Guides, can you please give me a card for today? Whoop. There we are. You know what? This is great. It's a good one. We got Pavarti, Devotion. So what this card is telling us is to commit to the path we're on. And I think this is great, as always. I don't know why I keep questioning this. Of course it ties into what we're talking about. That's what it's meant to do. Devotion. Commit to the path you're on. The things that happen to you are meant to be happening to you when you go through a spiritual awakening. All of these things are signs. They are all nudges or pointers. And we can have this inclination to pull back because it's scary, because it's something that, for whatever reason, it's going to mean a big change for us. It's going to mean that we have to do something hard And so what this is asking of us is to stay devoted to that path. Trust in the process, trust in how things unfold for you, and devote yourself to them. So again, with this devotion, it's asking us to stay on that path, to understand that these things are happening for us no matter how hard they are, and that we need to devote ourselves to it, not just for ourselves, but for the greater purpose, for the collective energy, for changing the world in a more positive way. Collective change comes from individual contribution, individual participation. And it can be hard to go against the grain, to go against what the majority is doing, to swim upstream from everybody else. But the tide only changes when there's enough momentum behind it. And there needs to be enough momentum behind it by enough people choosing to do that. So despite the hard path that you feel you're on right now, even if you're listening to this and this is resonating with you on a personal level, despite the hard path that you're on right now, devote yourself to your personal growth. Devote yourself to the rightness that you feel inside of you. And not only that, you are the most important person in your life. Devote yourself to you. Don't wait for someone else to devote themselves to you for things to change. You may have been in a situation in life, growing up or now, where you were not the priority, where you were not the one that people were putting everything into. And I know that that hurts and that causes wounds of its own. I've been there. But what this card is also saying to us is that it is never too late to prioritize yourself for yourself. Everything around us harmonizes and falls into line when we treat ourselves with the highest self-worth and utmost respect to devote the time and energy it takes. Think of how many things, people that you have devoted yourself to, even though they're hard. Even though it's hard, even though it's a lot of work, you've devoted yourself to it because you believe in that. Imagine what will happen when you do that for yourself. When you don't say this is going to be hard and try to escape or wait for someone else to come help you. Imagine what you can do when you believe in yourself, when you put yourself first, when you devote yourself to your happiness and your personal growth. So I hope that today's episode was enlightening for you, hopefully maybe a little bit empowering, and maybe not too rambly. It was a little rambly, I'll be honest with you. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back, as always, every week with either a solo episode or a guest episode. And as always, I will leave you with my parting words. Take what resonates and leave the rest.